Hello, my name is Eva Beylin, Director of the Graph Foundation. For those who don't know, the Graph is a Web3 data indexing protocol, so a really easy way to get data for building applications or analytics. Something called the subgraph you might have heard of. The subgraph is a standard API that was built by the Graph. And I want to talk a bit more about how AI can actually help Web3 instead of the typical conversation, which is how we can help AI. There's a bit of a broken record. I don't know if you agree, but a lot of, let's decentralize AI. We're going to, fix AI. We're going to make it better. Web 2 needs AI. Web 3, Web 2 AI can't possibly survive centralized. And I think that that's great. I think it's definitely, obviously, the philosophical alignment we're looking for. But I think it misses the boat a little bit in how adoption of technology typically occurs. There are definitely some Web 2 AI companies that want to decentralize, and they're pursuing that goal. But we should not be viewing this as the product market fit for, our decentralized AI protocols. So instead of saying, what can we do for AI, we really should be saying, what can AI do for us in Web3? And how could AI actually increase adoption of Web3? We're still in a nascent industry. We don't need to take on the AI industry's problems as well. So thinking, across use cases, there's many ways that AI can actually improve Web3 that actually makes it a much better experience, even a better product. So obviously, agents are a really interesting area. In particular, Web3 is better suited for agents than Web 2 because all the data is public and verifiable. It actually makes it much more of the language that an AI could speak more than Web 2 data. Obviously, predictions and intelligence, anything related to utilizing AI's knowledge to help you predict new events or behaviors. AI for security is an up-and-coming industry where we can actually leverage AI to improve smart contract security. That would improve the overall Web3 space. Obviously, training models on Web3 data is interesting, and building out aggregations, DApp tooling, that kind of thing. And in particular, it would be pretty exciting if we could see chat GPTs that were built into every DApp interface. So imagine going to Uniswap and seeing a chat GPT where you could search up your own past trades or statistics about other trades. And that could actually improve the overall UX challenges that we're seeing with Web 2 users not making it over to Web 3. In particular, decentralized protocols are actually really well positioned to grow AI usage within Web3. So you can think of this a bit as dog fooding our own technology, but actually solving real problems for us. So again, not really thinking about how to, Web3 AI decentralization, help Web 2, but how can we actually help ourselves? And a few of these advantages, are really based on the fact that a network enables so much redundancy in work that otherwise we would be putting onto the plate of our DApp developers work that they don't currently do today. So for example, if you wanted to build a ChatGPT for your DApp interface, you've got a few options. You either run the node yourself for the data itself, from your smart contracts, from your events, whatever it might be, run the API, and then also run the model and train the model. And that's a lot of work for a product team. The typical best practices of a DApp team is that they outsource their data needs. They don't run the node themselves. They use people like the Graph, other RPC providers, whatever it might be. So you can envision here that node operators are actually already doing all that hard work. Why would you rely on your own team? And the existence of decentralized networks actually makes it easier then for dApps to integrate AI than if they were doing it themselves. DApp teams also, don't typically sync the entire history of their dApps. So teams like Uniswap that have been in existence for 4 or 5 years now, they aren't the ones that do the hard work of indexing that data. They rely on indexers that are already experts at processing that data. So similarly, leveraging the existing infrastructure that we have in Web3 of literally hundreds of node operators that index data across all of these 20 different protocols. The modularity of offerings with Web3 being that, there's things like EigenLayer, there's things like the graph, there's things like Ritual, there's all these ways that you can enable AI services that if a DApp team ended up trying to do that themselves, it would probably be a multi-million-dollar project. You'd have to hire a whole team, you'd have to figure out, what is the right architecture for each data service. And the industry of AI Web3 solutions is starting to get more mature. So we're in a place that we can actually start leveraging that ourselves, partially because it's cheaper and easier than us doing it ourselves. The last 2 points are, kind of the two biggest features of blockchains. The fact that the data is open source and public means that it is much more verifiable for us to run a model on Web3 data than it is on Web2 data. We can literally create unique new experiences that otherwise are not possible because Web2 data is gated, often by corporations. Web3 data, means that anybody here can run a model on the Graph's Uniswap data or the Graph's Zora data, and your models may all be different, and that's amazing. And we actually create much more innovation that way. Again, utilizing Web3 to actually get us there. And the last piece, which is kind of more futuristic, more exciting, obviously zero-knowledge proofs, building out ZK LLMs, and also ZK co-processors, which can process data off-chain, which is one direction that folks are going in for verifiability of AI, because bringing AI inputs or outputs on-chain may actually not be the most efficient path forward. But again, leveraging cryptography, blockchains themselves to actually make this possible for, again, our own use cases for verifiability. For example, EIP 4844 and EIP 44 introduce new constraints where archive nodes aren't incentivized to run verifiable nodes, and so you can actually enable AI to support you there. Running through some of the ways that the graph is thinking about, leveraging our DePIN ecosystem for AI for the Web3 ecosystem is, inference and agent services. So this could be anything from again, a ChatGPT on something like Uniswap, or it could be working with teams that are building out agents for specific smart contracts. I know, for example, that the Gnosis Safe ecosystem is building out some cool tooling around using Gnosis Safe with AI, so you can basically have an agent access your safe. And we're also looking into ways, to enable new use cases that aren't the typical, sort of DALL-E, ChatGPT use case that's very consumer-centric and also very reliant on Web2 data, but exploring ways that Web3 data can actually be helpful. So I'll actually run through an example of ways that you can use two different graph data services. So with the graph, we have a network of indexers. They run the nodes of the chains themselves, and they also run a node that indexes data. And that indexer that they run, that stack, might be very specific to the data service they run. So here they would run the stack of an AI indexer as well as an SQL indexer. And what we're trying to go for here is basically build an end-to-end loop of ChatGPT using a DePIN network, the graph. Anybody can become a node operator. And it starts with the user prompting, can you give me the last 10 trades on Uniswap? And they can do that in natural language. They then, have that request sent to an AI indexer. That indexer then outputs a SQL query, because models actually love SQL. It's really efficient for them. It's an efficient way for us to communicate with them. And so you use the AI indexers to output a SQL query. They run a code gen model to do that. And that SQL query goes to the SQL indexer, and that SQL indexer returns the result. And so this is a really great example of how we can actually just solve our own problems. We don't even need to think about the Web2 AI problems. We can solve our own problems, which is, let's find out more information about the smart contracts we use, what data is interesting, what are the trends and analyses, while leveraging DePIN itself. And sort of to conclude, I would say that because DePIN means so many different things, it's really every layer of the stack. It could mean different chains. I think it's worth us starting to explore what utilizing DePIN to solve AI problems and AI can solve DePIN problems, and vice versa, because if we actually are serious about a truly decentralized stack, when we mean DApp or decentralized application, that includes when we leverage AI, that it's decentralized, and when we don't leverage AI, but we're just building AI solutions, those solutions need to be decentralized as well. That's it. Thank you.